And his question is about spontaneity. So his question is, what sets the New York School apart from Kerouac? To him, it seems the New York School is very spontaneous, as Kerouac advocated.
Wow.
There's a spontaneity to the I do this, I do that style.
All right.
Form.
All right. Let's go around. I want quick responses from everybody on the question of the spontaneity. And let's get Eric the mic so he can chime in on this as well. All right. Amaris, quickly, what's your first take, quick take?
It's spontaneous, but not in that stream of consciousness sense that Kerouac had, so I still get a sense of a very craftedness to it.
Okay, Anna?
I think we're supposed to have, like, the experience of the spontaneous, but not necessarily, like, I like my reading experience to feel spontaneous, but I don't necessarily feel that he's, like, writing as he's literally walking down the street with his milkshake in one hand and his pen on the other. You know, I think
Keats would sort of want to do, but he's going to go back and write. Although O'Hara was as close to that as you could come, standing at parties with a typewriter, writing while the party's going on. You know, Kristen, your thought?
I would agree with Anna. I don't think that we're meant to assume that he's just writing it as he's walking down the street. I think it's spontaneous in that he does take notice of things that as they're happening, but yes, the arrangement of them is not necessarily as he sees them.
Right. And there is a past tense that's present tense. He goes back home a few days later and says, you know, and you've heard people tell stories like this, right? They say, so I'm at the store, and I'm standing there, and Mrs. Rosencrantz comes up to me, and she says, how are you? What are you buying? The celery's very good. And the celery is very good. Meanwhile, that's 3 days ago celery. So there is a present tense that's a strategy. It's a literary strategy. Max?
I don't believe in spontaneity, so I don't think it's really an issue.
Max, give us the face of a guy who doesn't believe in spontaneity. Come on.
He's wearing it.
Very. There was a spontaneous face I gave you. So
okay, thank you, Andrea. Your thought?
I think we can look at the instruction manual as kind of a description. The part that you guys were talking about being so funny as far as he's omniscient, yet he has these moments of, you know, like, oh, look over there, and I have to get up to a higher place. It's planned spontaneity. It's very thought out, but wants to feel spontaneous.
Yes, and it does feel spontaneous. Allie?
I would say it's spontaneous at the level of the poem as opposed to on the level of the line.
Very good. Emily?
Yeah, I think the poem is a performance of spontaneity, which is in of itself not spontaneous.
Right. I think we all sort of said during the Beat Week that it's a fantasy of spontaneity, but there's really no such thing, because language is not transparent. Language is a strategy, it's a device, it always is. Even if you get a teletype roll and just keep typing all night, you're still not living there, you're writing with words. Julia?
I would say it's a spontaneity more in immediacy than in association. The spontaneity and what's happening right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. The
Katie?
process isn't spontaneous, but the reader might feel as if it's spontaneous.
Cool. And Eric?
So I think, movements, we can separate them, and it's important that we understand that there are aesthetic differences. But especially looking at O'Hara, O'Hara's a figure that in some sense belongs to both. He is very close to the people in the Beat movement. He's intimate with that, and he's also very close to the people in the New York School.
Right. And I think it's best for us, because ModPo likes to have a week, put a name on a week. And New York School invites that because they don't love the title, but that kind of worked for them, and the beats were distinct. But I think Eric's pointing toward a different ModPo, which would be less categorical, and we'd be studying lots of different versions of the New American poetry of this period.
One other connection I want to make with O'Hara, which is the connection not between the Beat and the New York School, but between the New York School and what was happening in London with the painters. Talking about important conjunctures.
Yes.
On David Hockney's first day in New York, he met Frank O'Hara.
Of course.
And they made love for 2 days.
Yeah, well, thank you for adding that. But David Hockney arrives, and of course, if you were an artist arriving in New York in the 50s and late 50s and early 60s, there's a good chance that Frank O'Hara would be the first person you would meet, because he was like the ambassador of a certain countercultural approach.